Okay, so let's talk about the new movie Avatar. I will warn you, if you've not seen the movie, do not watch this video. It does contain plot spoiling information. If you've not seen the movie Avatar yet, go watch it, then come back and watch this video. Give me some ratings, give me some reviews, and so on. I've personally seen the movie twice. I've seen it in non-3D and I've seen it in 3D. The movie starts out as a sort of a Starship Troopers meets Last of the Mohicans meets Born on the 4th of July. You get this character, Jake Sully, that can't walk after fighting in a foreign war, and he goes to a world that's half Alice in Wonderland and half Jungle Book. The natives are a cross between Native Americans and Africans, with a little Japanese thrown in for good measure. I love the graphics and how the characters come to life, especially the eye movements and the ear movements. The animals in the movie are half Princess of Mars, as you see here, and half Dinotopia. But altogether, I find them to be wonderfully put together and believable. The animals are one of the best parts, in my opinion, of the film. The princess, after all, who else would have stumbled across Jake Sully in the middle of the jungle? She's told she must train Jake, and she complains about it like a teenager, which is pretty funny. She then sets out to teach him how to be the best warrior/native that she can, and does a pretty good job when her teaching methods aren't trying to kill him. It reminds me of the early part of The Last Samurai, with the disillusioned war veteran handicapped not by alcohol but by his legs. Interestingly, both The Last Samurai and Born on the 4th of July star Tom Cruise. Past the midway point in the film, the plot takes a twist, like every chick flick you've ever seen, and the loving couple are separated by his deception. The movie then takes on a Last Samurai in Fern Gully theme, with Jake becoming the war chieftain of the clans, which is very reminiscent of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Princess of Mars series, once again. He sends out a call to arms, and a pitifully small army appears, given how many tribes are represented as being involved. What bothers me about the tactics of the last battle is that there really weren't any. If Jake was a Crackerjack Marine Recon, which here he is, supposed to be Crackerjack Marine Recon, then he would have thought things through a little more thoroughly. My 9-year-old son, seen here, picked up on this tidbit, which is pretty funny. The futuristic gunships are right out of any Vietnam War film you can name. And here you see a couple Green Berets and We Were Soldiers. You see some decent shots of some Huey gunships from the Vietnam War era. That's fine by me except for two things. One, the gunships are called Scorpions, but they have no tail guns. Two, the gunships are designed to support ground troops, not fight an air war. Seen here. Now, if Jake had thought it through, the gunships are flying horizontally through a group of flying rocks. Here you see some more shots of the flying rocks. The flying rocks are pretty cool. And this part is pretty cool, especially given the fact that the magnetic interference was messing with the sky peoples, the humans in this case, weapons tracking and navigation systems. If Jake had thought the battle out, he would have positioned warriors who didn't have the flying lizard creatures high along the floating rock formations with non-magnetic rocks. Imagine having dozens of warriors dumping a few dozen rocks apiece down onto the formations of scorpions and the larger flying craft below. Even if only 8 or so of the craft would have been hit and damaged bad enough to be taken out of the battle, or even just impaired, this would have been achieved with negligible casualties to the natives, which would have been ideal. Secondly, the scorpions are designed with rocket pods, seen here, on either side. There are no aft tail guns, as you can see, or any mounted to protect from attack from above. So there's nothing above and behind the aircraft to protect it from any kind of an attack from the back or from above, which, anyway, that's interesting. Once the initial attack of the rocks falling had been completed, it would have been the time for a dive bomber style attack from the flying warriors on the lizard creatures. Here you see the lizard creatures. Interestingly, in this picture, there are no people, or in this case the natives, actually on the back of the lizard creatures. Even though they have saddles mounted on them, they have nobody on their back, which is interesting. If each warrior aimed for the rotor blades with a bag of small rocks or some kind of hard chunk of wood, tossing it into the rotors as they passed, going straight down past the helicopters, in this case these scorpions, only one hit would have been required to cause the craft to spin out of control, as you see it happens in the movie to Trudy's craft, which is interesting. They're aiming for the windscreens in most of these cases. A wounded aircraft trying to recover from the loss of an engine is as great a danger to the craft as it is around it as it is to itself. The pilots would have been spending most of their time trying to navigate around their careening comrades as anything else. Once the initial dive bomber attack was over, the flying creatures would have only had to continue straight down to avoid being hit by the Scorpion's door gunners, who can't turn their guns down that far. They can't aim straight down. Flying in the loose formation that they were, the gunners would have scored very few hits against the flying warriors before they vanished out of sight into the fog and the sensory glitches that they were dealing with. Also, the formations the Scorpions were flying in was horrible. It did not give each gunship its own field of fire, and without breaking formation, none of them could score a hit without endangering the craft next to it. This is very bad tactically, and hard to believe of the capable, if homicidal, colonel. This guy's a war veteran, not a scratch on him from tours of duty on Earth, and here he is making just really a simple-minded mistake. I don't buy this at all. A simple flying wedge above the shuttle and one below would have been better than what they had going on, with a handful of Scorpions flying recon above, below, fore, aft. You get the picture. This lack of tactical planning is hard to believe, but ideal if the wild charge that the natives followed with was to work. Next, how did the arrows... Here's a couple more gunship pictures. How did the arrows that had proven so horribly ineffective against the Scorpion's windscreens earlier in the film, and that of any other aircraft they fired at, suddenly become able to punch through the glass and kill the pilots? It doesn't make much sense, but fortunately for the flying warriors, it worked very well all of a sudden. Also, why did Jake wait until most of his warriors had been wiped out to do the most logical thing that he could? The object of defending the glowing weepy willow tree thingy was to keep the planet's neural network from being damaged. I get that. Taking out the shuttle would have caused a huge explosion in the middle of the air, in the center of the ridiculous formation of Scorpions. Any such destruction of the shuttle would have doomed the Sky People's mission to failure, and meant that the flying warriors would have only had to mop up the Scorpions that remained. A demoralized enemy who knows he cannot achieve victory is likely to retreat. History shows this. And that retreat would have given the natives the upper hand they needed to bring about a total victory.